let's make one of my favorite fat quarter quilt patterns called Charmed. Charmed is a free pattern that I will have in the link down below in the description, which will be available in 5 quilt sizes: baby, throw, twin, queen, and king. So if you are doing the baby, throw, and or twin, you can most definitely complete it within a day. Now, since this is a super quick pattern, I am selecting all of my fabrics to finally make me a king size quilt because this year I wanted to make me a minimum of 6 king size quilts. So here's the first one. Now, first we're going to go ahead and iron out all of the fat quarters flat so we can get started on cutting. Now I am going to cut one fat quarter at a time because this pattern has zero room for error. You'll be using about 95% of this whole fat quarter, so please be very careful. Measure 5 times maybe, and be sure to cut once because with each fat quarter, there is really no room for error. So with that said, from each fat quarter, go ahead and cut out 2 3.5 inch by 16.5 inch rectangles, as well as 2 3.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles, and 2 5.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles, and lastly 4 2.5 inch squares. Now I will have a cutting diagram available in the pattern, which of course will all be linked down below, so you can visually see how to cut up your fat quarters. But for this video tutorial, I'm going to cut up one more fat quarter. Once you have all of your fat quarters cut, take 2 matching 5.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles and 4 2.5 inch squares. Make sure the 4 2.5 inch squares are the same print but different from the rectangles. And what you're going to do is place the 2.5 inch squares like so, and we are going to sew at a 45-degree angle from corner to corner. And to make this easier, I'm going to place the wrong side up, and using a pen, pencil, or some sort of fabric marking tool, I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner, which I will be using as a guide to sew directly on. So go ahead and sew on the line because next we are going to trim off the excess fabric. Now you can either use fabric scissors or roughly cut out a 1/4 inch away from your sew line, or you can use a ruler and measure correctly a 1/4 inch away and cut with a rotary cutter. If you do this method, I will have a scrappy tutorial coming up showing you what you can do with these little scrappy triangle pieces. But go ahead and press them open, or better yet, press one side to the dark side and one side to the light side, because now we are going to take these two pieces and sew them together like so. Once you have sewn the two rectangles together, now we are going to frame it up. So go ahead and take the 2 3.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles and sew them to the right and left sides with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And lastly, sew the last two 3.5 inch by 16.5 inch rectangles to the top and bottom of your block. And ta-da! You are done, and you will be left with a 16.5 inch square block. This is a huge block, and like I said, this quilt will be coming together very quickly for you. So go ahead and repeat all of these steps to every single fat quarter you have. Now for the king size quilt that I am making for myself, I ended up making 49 blocks, and now I'm going to show you how to lay out the quilt. So take each block and you're going to lay each block next to each other, but rotate every other block 90 degrees. And all you'll have to do is just sew your blocks together to form rows, and then lastly sew your rows together to form your quilt top. And here is my finished quilt top. And I am obsessed with these fabrics, and I am so glad that I have more fabric to make more quilts. But here's my quilt top. I can barely fit it all on the table, but since this is a king size quilt for our bedroom, I'm going to be doing an edge to edge quilt pattern. But I did something a little bit different. I went ahead and designed a custom edge to edge pattern. But first, here is the backing fabric that I selected, and now I'm going to be picking threads, which this is the time I'm going to be using two different thread options. For the back, I will be using a white tone, and the front, I will be using a gold color to really make this quilt shine and luster so much more. I love the gold metallics. So for the backing, I ended up choosing glide thread in the color bone. It is not a pure white, but it is a light, light, light gray color, which I think is pretty perfect. And for the front, I am going with Glide in Sand. Sand this year has been my number one favorite gold color so far. I actually would have used this for the backing, but as you can see, there isn't much left. So now let's get quilting it. Today, like I mentioned, I am using an edge-to-edge pattern that I designed personally, which is called Hand Drawn Meadows. And I will have a link for this down below in the description as well for all of my robotics quilters. But I wanted to create a field of flowers because throughout this quilt there are a ton of flowers, and look, even here there is a deer in a flower field, which may be upside down, but hey. Now, this edge-to-edge pattern is fairly large. I designed it around 8 to 10 inches tall by almost 38 inches wide before it repeats. That way we can get some really good variations, and that is going to help make it look like really wild, so to speak. Now, fair warning, there is quite a bit of back stitching that happens and overlapping with stitches, because what you'll see is you'll see it travel up a flower stem, do the flowery bits and all the florals, and then it will travel all the way back down. So it does go through a little bit more extra thread, but honestly, and yes, I might be a little bit biased, but to me it was totally worth it. I love this edge to edge pattern so much. But anyways, continue watching so you can see the whole row quilt out if you like. And here we go. Here are some cute photos that I took with my pups. Of course, once I laid it out on our bed, they all had to jump on it and check everything out. But I do hope you all enjoyed this really quick and fun quilt pattern. If you could, please hit the like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell because, as always, there will be more amazing projects coming at you.